Steve Shoot. All right, it being 7 o'clock on Monday evening, we're going to call Gardner City Council to order. Those of you that are able, if you'd like to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on the agenda this evening is a couple of proclamations. Those of you that have looked at the agenda before you got here this evening realize that there's quite a bit of planning business on both the work session and the City Council agenda this evening. And because of that, and because of the great amount of time that's spent in the Community Development Department working on planning, as well as city staff, City Council, and residents that were involved over the course of the last year, whether it was part of the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee or people that came to planning meetings that were coinciding with the development of the Comprehensive Plan. You know that it's a large undertaking and one that we take seriously here. And we've got a proclamation for Community Planning Month. Whereas Kansas municipalities, counties, and regional planning entities continually face changes in their communities, and whereas community planning can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live, and provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community, and whereas the full benefits of planning require public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. And whereas the American Planning Association has designated the month of October as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States and its territories to highlight the contributions of sound planning and plan implementation. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month also affords us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of planning and zoning boards and other citizen volunteers who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the city of Gardner. And now therefore, I be it resolved that I, Chris Morrow, the Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2014 as Community Planning Month. So, Mike Hall, we're going to give this one to you. The next one, you know, we've had a great sports week in Kansas City. Well, or maybe not Sunday. No, maybe not Sunday afternoon. Yeah, I got you. So I should probably be wearing blue, but I'm not wearing blue, I'm wearing pink. And that's because it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I know we've got a guest here with us. that I was hoping might come and join me while I read this proclamation. Hi, Monica. So, whereas, while considerable progress has been made in the fight against breast cancer, it remains the most commonly diagnosed cancer and the second leading cause of death among women in the United States. And whereas each year it is estimated that more than 220,000 women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer, and more than 40,000 will die as a result of the disease. And whereas National Breast Cancer Awareness Month is a platform for educating women about the importance of early detection of breast cancer through mammography and other methods, and whereas through research and advocacy, significant advances have been made in the fight against breast cancer, including significant decreases in mortality. And whereas this October, we recognize breast cancer survivors, those battling the disease, their families, and friends who are a tireless source of love and encouragement, and applaud the efforts of our medical professionals and researchers working to find a cure for this deadly disease. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Chris Morrow, Mayor of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2014 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we've got Monica Jacobs here. Thank you for coming. Monica has personal experience.
Yes.
And I asked her to please come so that maybe she could tell us a little something about making sure that we raise awareness and the importance of early detection.
I was diagnosed 4 years ago this month, just to kind of give you an idea. So I'm now kind of in, there's a lot of different organizations that work on the awareness, and one of them is Living Beyond Breast Cancer. So I guess you would call me now in that kind of category. To add to some of the statistics that Chris had given, 1 out of every 8 women at some point in their life deal with breast cancer. So it is extremely common, and the best thing that any woman can do is 2 things, which one is the self-exam. Right now, the latest information is about 20% of those that are diagnosed with breast cancer have been diagnosed because of their own detection via the self-exam. Another 20% is when they go to the doctor for the exam, and then about 60% is with mammograms. And it's very important. At one time, they recommended that you go at age 50, and they've now decreased that and say go at 40. At age 40, unless you have history of it in your family, and then you need to go earlier than that. I was very fortunate. It was a mammogram that detected mine. I had 2 different tumors, both were malignant, but incredibly early. Stage 1 very, very early. Had I not gone, kept up with my annual exams, I don't know how far that would have gone before I finally went. Chris mentioned that the rate is down on the diagnosis or the severity and so forth, and that's definitely due to Breast Cancer Awareness Month and people knowing that it's very important that they take care of that and have their mammograms, do their self-exams, and stay on top of that. So thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome very much, and your loved ones, your neighbors, your other family members, encourage them and remind them to take early detection efforts, make early detection efforts, and do their best to make sure that they're cancer free, and if not, that they get it early enough that it's easier to combat. So I'm going to give this to you. I want to thank you so much for coming. I love the color of pink that you have in your hair. I wish I would have bought that for my shirt instead, but thanks so much for sharing your time and your message.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next on the agenda is public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. I realize that we've got a larger contingent this evening, and we've been tipped off very politely that there were going to be people in attendance that might want to speak. For those of you that have a hard time reaching the microphone, we have a directional microphone. Parks and Recreation Director Jeff Stewart has volunteered to help get you talking to the microphone, but if you'd like to be heard, it's going to be a lot easier if you speak towards the microphone. So, and for those of you that haven't been here before, during public comments, we generally don't, this isn't a point of interaction for the public with the council. This is an opportunity for the voices of the public to be heard. Very often, though, at the end of meetings, when we're doing our own council updates, we will follow up with staff in regards to action we would like to see taken based on the public comments we've heard at the beginning of the meeting. So, having said all that, I would invite anybody that's interested in making public comments to come forward. State your name and address for the record, and be heard.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Gary Carson. I live at 112 Brittany Court. This evening, you're going to hear about a plan from Public Works Director Brian Faust about moving a crosswalk and potentially saving the city a great deal of time and money. Joining me tonight are a few residents of Brittany Court and the surrounding neighborhoods. For the past 30 years, these folks have raised concerns to city leaders about the crosswalk leading from the sidewalk at Brittany Court, crossing over North Center and ending at a driveway. For the most part, the complaints from residents have been ignored. And until recently, when the Gardner Aquatic Center was built, the planners, designers, and some city personnel have shown total disregard for the safety of the residents by not following pedestrian traffic design standards. The crosswalk is not only unsafe, it is in fact illegal. Mr. Faust has a great plan, and I urge the city leaders to take this matter seriously. The city has ignored the residents for 30 years, and tonight you've got the power to let them know that their concerns will be met. I'm not going to stick around for the debate because there shouldn't be any debate. If the city council decides not to act on this tonight, you'll lose an ally in me. Instead of writing letters to city officials and trying to find solutions to problems, I'll be spending my time filling out paperwork at the Department of Justice. Thank you for your time, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Gary. I don't know if there were any more of the residents of Brittany Court that were planning on speaking, but if you weren't but would like to let us know who you are, a show of hands would be welcome. Okay.
My name's Doug Cross. I live at 131 Brittany Court. I recently moved to Gardner, and the first time I used the crosswalk that you're talking about, I was astounded to see that it dumped into an entrance and exit of a parking lot, and a very busy one during summer months. And it was only by the grace of God that I haven't been hit. I use that quite often because Mike and I are avid readers, so I go to the library quite often. I use the drugstore for my medicine. And even tonight, coming here, I had a blue minivan that if I hadn't backed up a little bit, I'd have got clipped. And this goes on constantly. It's not something that's just once in a while. This is quite often. And I really appreciated the time you had the sign down, a few blocks down. I really do think that helped. But I don't know what is in the works, I don't know what's planning, but I'm just here to tell you folks, it's not an if, it's a when. Somebody is gonna get hit, and someone's gonna get hurt. And I really hate to see that happen to them, and certainly hate to see the city get into, legal battles and, or something that can be fixed. I'm not an engineer, so I can't begin to say what should be done. I leave that to the professionals. But if someone would just go look at that and see the crosswalk, goes right into a parking lot, that can't be good. This summer, I was coming from the swimming pool area, headed back home, and there was a car to my left on Center Street, slowed down. So I was like, great, he's slowing down for me. I started out, but as I always do, I double check. Well, he was right here. He went around me and into the parking lot. That's just the kind of thing we have, and I don't know, now I try to sit back and just wait for the traffic to clear up, but there's some times of the day that you're gonna be there for a very long time. And you just wait for, there are quite a few yet that will see you and they'll stop, but then there's a lot of them that won't. But like I said, I'm just telling you folks, I hate to say that, but it's going to happen. Somebody's going to get hurt. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for sharing with us.
My name's Claire Kennedy, and I live in Brittany Court. And I like to take my grandkids to the pool and to the park, but you can't even step out there thinking you're going to make it safely across the street, and that's very scary to me. And is something going to have to happen before? Is something going to have to happen to someone before anything is done about it? And look how long it's been let go. I think this matter is important, and I just hope you guys reconsider and something would be done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Public comment from anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I have a quick question. I'm Mark Hanna. Would you confirm for me whether or not the items 1 and 2 on the new business agenda are part of a public hearing?
I believe they are.
Is that a yes?
I can answer that question. Yeah, they're not, but items 1 and 2 are not public hearings within the meaning of the statutory term, but it is the standard practice to accept public comment on agenda items. And that's up to the mayor's discretion.
And we do accept comments on agenda items after staff has presented.
Just want to make sure that I wasn't going to miss my only opportunity to speak. Thank you. I'll wait till that comes up.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? No one else coming forward. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a council member present that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Schuth, that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda passes. New business item number 1, consider authorizing the city administrator to execute a development agreement with the property owner, Gardner 188 LLC, regarding the right-of-way dedication and funding of street improvements for Sheen's Crossing, second plat. Michael, good evening again.
Thank you. Just waiting for this to come up. So just a couple of things before I move on with this. A little history here. In April, the governing body approved a rezone and a preliminary development plan for Nottingham Village, which is on the site shown in red. It's a 5-acre site within Shane's Crossing. Part of the previous community development plan and the 2009 master plan included a realignment of 191st running through this area. And that has been in various locations, but a potential location for the realignment would have crossed through this site. And so as a condition of the rezone and adopted as a condition of the ordinance approving the rezone was a right-of-way dedication for a road that connects 188 to 191st in a generally parallel with Gardner Road, or an agreement that commits the owner to dedicating the right-of-way at some point in the future. This is the replat. This is the area that's subject to the replat, Shane's Crossing second plat. On the plat, this is the location of the right-of-way that's being dedicated. I believe it was on August 18th, there was a meeting where we brought the plat before you for your adoption or for your acceptance of the right-of-way and the easements. And at that point, we had not reached agreement with the owner of Shane's Crossing on who was going to construct and how this right-of-way was going to be constructed. It just showed the right-of-way dedication. Since that time, we have worked closely with the owner, and tonight we bring you a development agreement that staff and the owner are in agreement on. And I believe they've signed it, so it's ready to go from their point of view. So this exhibit shows the cross-section of the road that would be constructed in this right-of-way. This slide demonstrates potentially if the owner was going to develop Lot 3 is shown in the green dashed line, or the green dashed rectangle, they would be provided or permitted the option of constructing the right-of-way improvements just enough to provide access to that lot. So I'm going to go to this slide. These slides, perhaps this should have been the first slide. Just want to make a point or just describe in general the agreement. And if you turn to page 3 of the agreement, this is on that page. The proposed agreement provides for the vacation of the unimproved right-of-way. So if in the event that the right-of-way is not constructed for more than 75% of the length of the right-of-way by September 1st, 2024, the owner can request that the city vacate the right-of-way that's not constructed. So that's the first point. Go back to the other slide. In the event that prior to the city construction of the street, the owner develops any of the lots requiring access from the connector street, the owner shall construct the connector street at a width of 26 feet, which is shown in the previous exhibit, and to the length minimally necessary to provide access to the lots being developed. And this is a scenario that demonstrates that. Access requirements will be determined with the site plan review application prior to the building permit. So as part of the site plan application that will be reviewed by staff and by the commission. Their access will be determined at that time. How much, to what extent do they have to penetrate that lot? Go back to the other exhibit. The proposed agreement provides for the possibility of constructing the street at a width greater than 26 feet if the city deems it necessary. So what you can see in this diagram is that the owner would be responsible for constructing the 26 feet with the concrete curb and gutter on one side and an asphalt rolled curb on the opposite side. And then as other sites are developed, they can come in and construct the other part of the right-of-way, or the city could construct the other part of the right-of-way as the city finds funding. So that's the nature of the agreement. If you have other questions, I can answer those. City attorney was very involved in this, and he could answer those questions as well. And with that, I'll take any questions or comments.
Okay, well, before we do that, we'll open the floor for public comments. Anyone in attendance that would like to make public comments about new business item number 1, now is your opportunity.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name's Mark Hanna. I'm an attorney. My office is located at 130 North Cherry in Olathe, Kansas. I'm here this evening on behalf of the Ann Radke Trust. Ms. Radke was my mother-in-law. She's deceased. And she left 60 acres of property to 8 of her grandchildren. So the grandchildren and her surviving spouse are the current beneficiaries of the trust. The Radke Trust owns the property that's more than 60 acres in size. It's known typically, I think, to you all as the Pumpkin Patch property. The Pumpkin Patch used to lease the property from the trust, and for a variety of reasons parted ways, and the Pumpkin Patch has moved to a new location. So if you all can picture it, the 60-plus acres is bounded by I-35 on the south, 191st on the north, Gardner Road to the east. And like I said, it's important, and I'd sure ask you all to recognize tonight, we're not talking about a 5-acre tract down there or a 2-acre tract. We're talking about almost 65 acres that this trust owns. For some time, I think maybe over the last year or more, you all commissioned a new master plan. And it's my understanding that that master plan was just approved last month, I believe September 15th. And I would let the council know this evening that our family, members besides myself and including myself, participated and certainly appreciated the opportunity that you all gave us to be working in conjunction with your planners that you hired to put together that master plan. We attended some meetings and some hearings in that regard. I personally have spoken with Mr. Doug Hamill of Halcyon Levine on more than one occasion and worked with him in regards to one particular thing, and that is the general vicinity of 191st and Gardner Road and I-35. I don't know if y'all remember it, but one of the changes that was ultimately, I believe, attached to and approved by the council with your new master plan that was before any realignment of 191st Street would be considered, that there would be an extensive, very thorough report and study done. Not by city staff, because I believe city staff would tell you they're not equipped to do the kind of study that Halcyon Levine suggested needed to be done in order to determine what to do with 191st Street. And I think everybody in the room understands what the white elephant is, and that's the fact that right now, and certainly my clients would acknowledge, right now 191st Street just sits too darn close to the interchange. I think everybody knows that the on and off ramps right there are awfully close to 191st Street. And from a practical standpoint, I would have to concede that in the long term, on down the road, at some point, it's not going to be practical to probably have a left turn off of 191st Street onto Gardner Road. Right now it works because the traffic volume's just not there. But I think everybody here can recognize that at some point a new plan's going to have to be developed that moves 191st Street north. some distance, some location. Where it is and how it's gonna be relocated is, I think, as the House Hill Levine study suggested, needing to be determined by a very thorough engineering, traffic study and report. I believe that if you take a look at the master plan that you all did approve, that you will see that there's a specific footnote or annotation on the new master plan that makes that specific suggestion to the council, and that is that we not get into the realignment of 191st Street until that's done. I attended the August meeting, the city council meeting, and I didn't speak up. I should have spoken up. I stood up and I didn't wave my hands to be heard, probably just as well that I didn't get heard. I will tell the council tonight that I made a request that my client, through myself or another brother-in-law that's an attorney or a sister-in-law, be allowed to participate in discussions concerning this development agreement. Because quite frankly, I think it's pretty obvious that this development agreement, and if Mike would be kind enough to put up one of the slides that shows the new road proposed location, pretty clearly is, at least for now, showing a new location of 191st Street. And that one will probably be fine. Thank you, Mike. Sure. I would suggest to the council that if you look south of this diagram and recognize that you all have a 60-plus acre piece of property that's the front porch to the entry into Gardner, off of Gardner Road and I-35, it's pretty darn important that we get it right. And I would suggest to the council here tonight that we don't know whether this is right or not, that we don't know whether this location that this developer wants to suggest is really and truly going to be the right kind of traffic and roadway that can handle the use, can handle the volume, can handle the kind of density that 60-plus acres down there on the interstate is going to handle. I want you all to visualize this. You're coming off of I-35, you turn north on Gardner Road. The way this looks, you have to go all the way to 188th Street north. You have to make a 90-degree left-hand turn. You have to go west on 188th Street to this. I don't think it has a name now. I hope it doesn't have 191st now. You have to go all the way west to this new proposed road. And then most importantly, you have to cut through this development on a roadway and go all the way back down south of what is now 191st Street to access 60-plus acres. And once again, if this was a 3 or 4 acre site, I wouldn't be making this such a huge point. This is 60-plus acres at I-35 and Gardner Road. I would respectfully suggest this is not a practical approach. This is, in our opinion, a backdoor approach to basically realign 191st Street. I'll just ask you all this. Wouldn't you agree that if this road is approved, if this development agreement's approved, and if the plat's approved, there's not going to be another location of 191st Street. This is going to be it. Because once this goes in there, there's not going to be any other practical way. The footprint set is what we believe. And we offered staff, and I'll circulate it to the council, we offered staff some input from some engineers that we hired in order to give them some suggested alternative locations for the roadway here. And I'll just go ahead and, Mike has one of these, but I'll give you another one. And if you can kind enough to pass them around, I appreciate it. Thank you. The red dashed line on this diagram is just one of the many possible ways that 191st Street could be relocated. We don't pretend to suggest that. It's just a one-page document. And the red dashed line is just one engineer that we hired. It's his opinion as to one of the many options that would be available. We think it's a bad idea for the council to approve this development agreement. It's premature. It's really setting the stage for a backdoor approach to realigning 191st Street. It's essentially, I would respectfully suggest, it's in a sense violating your master plan because you're putting new roadways in here without the kind of study that House Hill Levine suggested that you all need to have in front of you before you make decisions on anything that impacts 191st Street in this area. So for all of those reasons, I would respectfully suggest that you not approve this development agreement, that you not approve this plat, and if in fact there needs to be access from 188th Street down to this location, that's the only thing the council needs to consider. It doesn't need to consider anything south of the lot there. It shouldn't consider that, and it should leave everything south of this lot 3 to be determined after the appropriate study is done. As you can see, the map that I've given to you all suggests that one of the many options would be to relocate 181st Street so that it exits onto Gardner Road on the north side of the convenience store. That's where the red dashed line currently is. I don't profess to suggest that that is the best, certainly not the only way to look at it, but for the reasons I've suggested, I think it's important for the council to slow down a little bit, to recognize that this isn't just a road for this development, but this is potentially going to impact the front porch of the city of Gardner and the 60-plus acres that's down there south of this and on 35. Certainly open for questions. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer them, but I'm more than willing if there are questions.
No, I'll ask a very quick question of you. I appreciate you coming this evening. As we look at the map that was presented to us tonight, and unfortunately I know the public's not going to have a chance to see that. The first thing that you had mentioned was the, I can't remember the word that you used, but the fact that they would need to go up to 188, turn left, and then turn left again to get on the access. Is that
If
the
they were
way you
going
described it?
north on Gardner Road, they have to
Right.
turn left on 188, turn left again to come all the way back down.
What's different, although it's not all the way to 188 on the map we were presenting tonight, it's still a left turn and then another left turn onto the
The
exit?
distance would be very significant as far as the travel distance from a vehicle having to go all the way up to 188 versus being able to turn at the north side of the convenience store to get down to the 60-plus acre tract.
I'll be frank, I have trouble with the distance argument. I can't imagine it's more than, fortunately we don't have it here, but I can't imagine it being more than a distance of maybe 100 to 150 yards.
Yeah, it's about 500 feet.
I know it's in that neighborhood.
So just kind of explain to me your thought process that being such a negative impact.
Well, it's not just that aspect of it. If the traffic was able to access the 60-plus acres on the red dashed line, they would potentially, the road could be reconfigured in a way to make an S-curve up to that location. In other words, 191st could be made into an S so that it would basically transition up behind the convenience store and without the right-hand turns, if they're the 90-degree turns. So if you would go all the way back down to 191st and make an S curve through there, it would eliminate the idea of having to go all the way to 188, make 2 right-hand turns, and then come all the way back down south. Guys, here's, and I don't mean to avoid your question, but if this is envisioned to be the road to serve 60-plus acres, I think that you all need to take a hard look at the specs of what you're looking at here tonight. Because I don't think it's nearly sufficient, and I don't think there's been a study done that contemplates the fact that this road, for all intents and purposes, is going to be there to serve this 60-plus acres.
I think that's a very fair question. That's probably a question we'll ask Mike following the comments there. The only other question I would have, just from the right-of-way perspective, what it gets into is then becomes a property owner issue because you've placed road on land that someone else has owned.
And see, I believe that that's going to probably happen if you all approve this, because if you sit and look at the current amount that's being dedicated or proposed to be dedicated, the length or the width of that's not gonna be nearly sufficient. Look at how much is being contemplated as far as this dedication width-wise. Is it 20-some? I don't know what the roadway is planned on, but I believe it's pretty narrow. And the size of it, if you stop and think about what it takes to serve 60 acres, I would suggest it's a 4-lane road at some point. It's a major arterial type road that's gonna need to happen. And how willing is this property owner gonna be to have that size road splitting when he's already started the development of these lots on a narrow frontage or a narrow width basis?
All right, I've got a quick question with you. I mean, I realize that you're an attorney and I'm an engineer.
Right.
And I know that, access management, for left-hand turns coming off of an interstate like this is certainly problematic. And where you're talking about going, we've got planners here, we've got engineers here, but we're just eyeballing things. I'm still wondering whether or not that's going to provide the kind of distance required so that we can have easy access, even if we were to purchase the property and move the road there.
And it may not.
And so, one other quick thing, I think that as much as anything, we had hosted the secretary for the Kansas Department of Transportation earlier this year. And we took him on a tour around the city. Councilman Shoup was with us. We had some department heads, department directors that came along. But we identified the inadequacy of the interchange at Gardner Road and I-35. I would imagine that you probably understand that it's not suitable for the kind of traffic that we're not only currently experience, but probably will experience in the future.
Even an ignorant attorney can see that.
Yeah. So, what I'm kind of wondering is I think that the best solution to help with development on 191st Street is to redevelop that interchange and move the exit 150 feet north so that it goes directly across onto 191st Street with some signalization. Now, that's going to require lobbying of, the state legislature and the people in the Department of Transportation, and it's probably a lengthy process. But whether it's what's been identified here by city staff and the people that own 188th Street LLC, and our city staff and our legal, neither of these are good options. The good option will be, can we work with the Department of Transportation to make that happen? And if we don't, if that's not where we're expending our energy, really lobbying those folks, then all we're doing is setting up for fixes that probably aren't going to be feasible into the future.
I couldn't agree with you more, and that's why I think Household Levine urged the council to realize before you start making changes in the roadways out here, a really extensive overview needs to be done of this area. And that's our concern, is that by starting this, you're basically casting the die.
Steve, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had one, and that is, I was going to be disputing the assertion that this is going to be a narrow road. It's a 60-foot right-of-way. That's a 60-foot right-of-way, which is a 5-lane road. I mean, you're talking about 4 and then a center, what is it called, a center turn lane, or for in both directions.
Sure.
So that's the ultimate width of the right-of-way, and that to me would accommodate the arterial traffic that you're discussing.
All I can say in response to that is that we hired Harold Phelps as in his engineering firm to assist us, and he had concerns without having a full-blown study done, whether or not that would be sufficient.
And that's a fair assumption. That's a 5-lane road, at least in the short term, would I believe, service that area.
Right now, certainly, I think it would in the short term.
Yeah.
But down the road, when that 60-plus acres is developed,
Mhm.
whether it's got a Lowe's or a motel and restaurants or
Yeah.
those kind of uses on it, you all think about the kind of volume and density of traffic that those things create. And I once again would suggest that as crazy as it might sound, the decision you're gonna make tonight can start to have a pretty significant impact on what happens to that 65 acres down.
Mhm.
Anyone else have any additional questions for Mr. Hannah? I think we've had somebody that's moved up to the front row here. I don't know if you were wanting to
Yes.
ask questions or make comments.
Comment.
Okay.
Thank you all for your time.
If you wanna hold.
Oh, I'll sit tight for a while.
Hold tight.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is allowed, I'm Sean Carlisle, I live at 617 North Wynwood Street. My question isn't really for you all, it's for Mr. Hannah. The 60-plus acres is the pumpkin patch currently, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is there any kind of development talks being going on? Is there like a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, or is there just?
Preliminary discussions is listed with the realtor who's made numerous contacts. There's been some interest shown, but probably not from the kind of users that they would ultimately like to see.
And then you had mentioned like a Lowe's or hotels or whatever that would go on the side of the city next to an interstate, and I'd have to kind of agree with Heath, 500 feet or less doesn't seem like a big inconvenience to go down a road and make a left and make a left. If you go to big cities like Lawrence and try to get to their Home Depot, you've got to have much more obstacles to get in and out of than that, so that was my only real questions or concerns.
All right, thank you, Sean.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mayor. My name is Chase Simmons. I am the managing member of Gardner 188. I'm also with Polsinelli Law Firm and development attorney. So I just want to clear up just a few things here, and then obviously, to the extent that there's any give and take that we need to go through. The location of this and the idea that what you should see up here on the screen is a public road was not something that our ownership originally contemplated. As far as I know, the current transportation plan for the city of Gardner actually has this connection further to the west, and I don't know if I can point on the screen or if there's a pointer, but if you see the northwest corner of the property there, that's where the road. So if Mr. Hannah's concerned about the access to get ultimately back up to a full turn, what's currently contemplated today is worse from the standpoint of the things he's talking about in the length and left-hand turns than what it is that we're showing. But again, when we came forward to rezone a portion of this property for apartments, what we had always shown on here, the property is currently platted. It's a private street that goes through the property, much less than 60 feet. And so we feel like we're doing, at the request of the staff and Mr. Hall and the legal staff, which we appreciate, they've worked with us real hard over the summer. We feel like we're doing a favor for the city of Gardner. Happy to do it, trying to be part of the overall solution out here. But we would prefer, if we were starting from scratch, we prefer not to be dedicating 60 feet of right-of-way right now. And we do want to make sure, and that's why there's that provision in there, that if for some reason this road doesn't get built in the next 10 years, or the city changes its mind and wants to do something else with the overall alignment, that the right-of-way that we're dedicating now be vacated. So that's one of the reasons we put that in the development agreement. So again, I guess the first thing that I want to get across is that this was not our original idea to go and establish right-of-way here. But it is something that we're willing to do to make the overall project work and to get the staff comfortable with going ahead and zoning in our apartments. As far as the location, I would say, and Mike may fall out of his chair because he's been saying this to me for 6 or 8 months. It's in basically the same location now shown as a public road with right-of-way. It's basically in the same location it's been since this property was platted 9 or 10 years ago, which is before my time. The actual area where it intersects with 188th Street has been moved to the west a little bit, and it is further than the exhibit that was just handed out to you. We would probably, in a perfect world, prefer it to be a little bit closer. Quite frankly, as development comes in and traffic studies are done, I can see the location of that moving around a little bit. But for the purpose of moving forward with our development, we had to establish something. It's not etched in stone. There's been a plat with access points approved on this property for 10 years, and we're changing them today, just like they could potentially be changed in the future. So from my standpoint, all I feel like we're doing is establishing right-of-way that actually will give access to the 60 acres, whereas today, it's private and we don't have to let anyone drive across our property no matter what we build on it. All that said, really what our interest is we're trying to stay as close to the overall development plan that we've had for a number of years. We think generally it works, and we need to move forward at this point with this development. Our phone is always available. We're willing to sit down and talk with anybody about how to plan this overall area. We probably wouldn't be all that thrilled about a 4 or 5 lane road through our property, but we are dedicating 60 feet of right-of-way. And as we develop, what we'll be doing is building 2-lane streets with the opportunity for them to be expanded as necessary. So we think we've done, I'm sure you can come up with scenarios where we've cast the die on something here or there, but we think after a lot of hard work with your staff, we think we've done the best we can to add maximum flexibility, which we need as well. One of the things we're trying to do with the site, which you heard from Mr. Peterson, I think when he was here during the rezoning, is kind of change the shape of it a little bit so we can attract retail development and it's not so deep. So that's one of the things that we're accomplishing. We think we know where the market is right now. It'll shift a little bit and there'll be changes that we come in from time to time, but I don't think we're doing anything here that's going to really damage anybody. It is just going to open up with this possible right-of-way. It's going to open up all the other properties that ultimately need to get to a left turn. And one thing that wasn't said, but I would note, we're not touching 191st Street. So the current 191st Street, it's just about accessing it. I'm looking at the little exhibit that was handed out, the red access point. We'd love a full turn access point right there. It'd be great for our property and great for others. Whether that's in the cards after they get done with all the traffic studies and things in the future, I don't know. With that, I'm certainly available for any questions. Thanks.
You might want to hang tight, Chase.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I've got a question for Brian. I know you were over there hiding behind the monitor. Good to see you. The distance that we're talking about to the red dotted line, you've seen the rendering that Mr. Hanna's brought with him. Is that going to be suitable for future? That's just the first question. I've got a couple, and then I'm going to shut up. I promise.
That access point there does not meet our access management standards.
Okay.
Our main access point there is 188. At some point in time, that'll cross the east side of Center Street or Gardner Road. And so all along, our plan is to have 188 as that main east-west route.
In the current transportation master plan, it's still detailing that there would be that there would be access from behind the current development at the end of 188th Street around into 191st.
Actually, originally it was through the apartments that are currently there.
Okay.
The apartments went in. It was actually right-of-way was dedicated on the east side of the apartments, which pretty much abut the proposed development.
Mm-hmm.
But further to the south, where the new tow place is located and Sperry Specialty is located, we don't have right-of-way dedicated. So quite honestly, this was one of our last opportunities in this area to get a north-south connection point.
So we're painted into a corner, and we either need to go through the 188th Street LLC property in a manner consistent to this, or we need to work with the state to get a suitable exit so that there's easy access to 191st Street?
Possibly. I mean, the overall study that the one gentleman talked about, we still would like to see a study between Gardner Road and Waverly, between I-35 and roughly 183rd Street, because there is a potential for a tremendous amount of development in that area. And so this road in itself, ultimate build-out, will be problematic if there's no other north-south connection. So, I mean, staff envisions a report showing further to the west, somewhere between Gardner and Waverly, additional north-south point, as well as 188, possibly extending to Waverly.
Questions for staff or the folks in attendance?
I did want to follow, and you'll have to be, Mr. Simmons?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this is actually just referencing your point, but, of Mike and Ryan, I think it was an important point that the way the proposal we have this evening, asking for access, it doesn't lock us in the roadways in any way to kind of, although, the impression that it might is relevant, and I wouldn't discount that, but that doesn't landlock us, it doesn't dictate how we're building any roads out in the future, is that correct? With the proposal we have before us and what we have this evening.
The road, when you look at the possibilities of a north-south route linking 191st, 188, quite honestly, there aren't that many options, and this appears to be the best option.
Right.
We don't have the luxury of having already done the transportation study that's gonna look at the network between, the road network between Gardner Road and Waverly and between 191st and 183rd. That's something that we will be doing. So, in my opinion, in terms of the alignment, this is very likely going to be the alignment. However, it doesn't restrict, this does not limit us to that with the right-of-way.
Right.
If there's a capacity issue where there's additional right-of-way needed, there's an opportunity for that. That doesn't mean there's an opportunity for the owner to dedicate it. There's an opportunity for the city to acquire it. The study will indicate how much capacity is needed, what the roadway network needs to look like to accommodate the anticipated traffic that's going to be on 188 immediately west of Gardner Road. It'll also address some of these access issues. 188th Street is one quarter mile from the interchange, which is the minimum separation per our access management code. It doesn't mean there can't be any restricted access between those points, but in terms of full access, and that's been on the plan for some time.
Okay, great. I did, Brian, this is more your direction. Explain a little bit, because it was written out pretty well, and it looks like you did a good job between two lawyers writing it, but explain the point of vacancy in the right-of-way in 2024, and exactly what that means to the city, and what we've committed to within that, and how that is a benefit to either or both of us.
Yeah, that was something that Chase brought forward, and it was based upon their concerns that if the city ultimately didn't follow through, or if the site wasn't developed and a majority of this right-of-way wasn't built within a 10-year period of time, that the land would revert back to the owner. And we felt that that was a reasonable request. I mean, if we are ultimately not going to use that right-of-way, well then, I mean, from the city's perspective, then that, quite frankly, didn't seem like a very fair deal as a landowner to make them give us a right-of-way that we're never gonna build out, so.
Mike, you agree with that, and Brian, you guys agree with the statement as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would just add from a kind of a political standpoint, if there are studies that are done and the city ultimately decides to put this road somewhere else, and that's 2 years from now, we'll probably be back in here 2 years from now and saying, okay, we know what the agreement says, but would you consider go ahead and vacating the right-of-way now? Because it's all about just trying to figure out what can we say to both the people we're marketing to and the overall community. What are the current plans, and trying to have something on the books, because we know the current plans right now, as we're indicated, they show a road that goes through an apartment complex, so we know that's not gonna happen. So this was just an exercise in figuring out what can we show and kind of build around.
Those are the questions I had, I appreciate it.
You know, I was just gonna ask a point of order. We're still in public comment, correct, right now?
Well, public comment can still be, yeah, that's, we'd still accept public comment.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions for staff? You know, my question is, given what we've heard from Mr. Hanna this evening, I mean, is it in the professional opinion of staff that we delay this item any longer? I'm not sure that I'm seeing it, that a vote will certainly determine that?
The problem with delaying this is that, the developer has an agreement with the owner, and, in fact, they've already submitted a building permit application, we have not logged it in.
Okay.
They are on a very tight timeframe, and we feel that this has been deliberated on quite a lot, resolves a lot of issues, so we would not recommend that this be delayed.
I just wanted to ask.
Cheryl?
Yeah, the request that we have from Mr. Hannah showing the access point at this location, we wouldn't be able to accommodate that with our current
Right.
standards, so, no.
Steve?
Yeah, just one last question, I'm just, point of clarification here. We decide that we're gonna be approving this, the replat, and, obviously, the current agreement has it as 26 feet, which is their minimum requirements for being able to access their properties. It's basically a side street until the city makes a determination that that's where the arterial is going. This is not the final decision, therefore, it's, we have, basically, we've created a reservation here for a potential move to make it into an arterial at some point in the future, but we're not by any means, committing ourselves to it. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
I'd like to assure Mr. Hannah that, that we've gotta be doing some transportation master plan work in the near future, right, Ryan?
Correct.
On top of that, there's very few things that I think are more important than solving our interchange problem at Gardner Road and I-35. And that's something that we're going to be lobbying state leaders for very hard, and honestly, any support that we get from people in the community would certainly be greatly appreciated. But with that being said, unless somebody else has another question or comment, I'd entertain a motion.
Move that in, hopefully, it's 2448, correct? Is that how we need ordinance 2448?
No.
It's not, okay.
It's not an ordinance.
Approval of the development agreement.
Yeah, okay, then,